All right, we
I'm
are.
doing this thing on my phone for the first time. Normally, I'm on a computer, but I don't have my computer here. So,
Well, it's looking good, man. You're looking good. You're looking. I mean, they always say
got
the camera
got
get.
the tree, got the tree in the background because we're idiots,
Wow, dude, that's awesome, dude. You're already getting in this Christmas spirit. I love it.
dude. Hey, we're ready for Santa Claus November 1, cuz.
Yeah, it's like as soon as that last piece of Halloween candy hits the bucket on Halloween night, you're like, boom, November 1st, it's Christmas time.
It's time. It's time.
Right. It's velvet time. Yeah, what's up, man? So, so we haven't done one of these Wrasslin talks, and like I said right before we went live, in probably at least 6 months, I bet.
Oh,
And
yeah.
A lot has happened in the last 6 months. So
Quite a bit.
there's no way we can get through everything today, Joey. But let me ask you, starting off, and we'll just kind of bridge from there. What would probably be the biggest thing for you as far as a news story goes over the last 6 months or so that you think's noteworthy to discuss a bit?
Well, I mean, dude, I don't think you can start anywhere else other than non-disclosure agreements.
Non-disclosure agreements. This is true.
NDAs, apparently many NDAs worth several $1 million from one Vincent Kennedy McMahon.
Yeah.
He is out at WWE, and his son-in-law, the Game, the cerebral assassin, Triple H, has taken the reins and is steering the ship now, my brother. And I'm going to be honest with you. So far, I like what I've seen.
I agree. I was very surprised, considering not surprised at anything that McMahon got caught up in. But if we rewind before all that happened, I mean, people started thinking that not only was Triple H maybe not going to be much for this earth much longer because of things, but he was basically like he was on the way out. Like it looked like McMahon had pretty much put him on the shelf, and he wasn't going to be around anymore, at least not in the capacity that he had been in the past. And it's just kind of surprising in the matter of the time that he kind of got put on the sidelines, and then with his health issues, that his father-in-law fell from grace, and now he is the mover and the shaker, the top dog in so many words. And it's kind of poetic, I guess, in a way, I think, that how it all kind of transpired and whatnot. I mean, we do have to acknowledge that there was an end of an era. I mean, wrestling as we know it is because of Vincent Kennedy McMahon, right? So, I mean, that is the world. I mean, no matter how much people can loathe him or hate him or indifferent to him, the world, the landscape of wrestling is because of McMahon in the modern times. I mean, would you not say that's probably a fair assessment?
Oh, I think it's more than a fair assessment. This whole situation reminds me of one of my favorite lines from The Office.
Okay.
How the turntables. But you're absolutely right, dude. I mean, Triple H was out. They took over NXT. They changed it from his kind of vision to Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard's. They added all the bright colors and the wrestlers that nobody knew, fired a bunch of folks. And then Triple H is coming on TV talking about almost dying. I mean, and now he's running the whole company, head of creative. He's and hired back a lot of those folks that were fired to begin with. So, and not only that, put them on the main roster too. So it's been a crazy last couple of months, 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, and and it also goes to show that, to me at least, that Triple H, regardless of what you think about him, even as a wrestling fan or whatnot, I feel like he definitely has his finger on the pulse of wrestling way more than McMahon did here in the last decade or so, especially the last 5 years. And I mean, he has righted a lot of those wrongs that McMahon had done over the last, since basically COVID-19, let's say, where he just pretty much just like went through with like his like a hammer or like an axe and just cut everybody loose. Pretty much. Got pretty much everybody out of there that he just didn't like or whatever. Didn't know how to use or didn't know what the best way. And he just wanted to focus on the people he wanted to focus on. He didn't even want to try to attempt to cultivate and grow up and coming young talent or whatnot, people who had a lot of potential, right? And essentially anybody that Triple H or the Heartbreak Kid had ordained as the future, McMahon found a way to get rid of, right? So as you said, that like Triple H has now been going back and kind of righting some of those wrongs.
Right. Yep. And it's clear. I mean, just look at what they're trying to do with Johnny Gargano. They brought back all the members of Hit Row that they could, minus Swerve Scott.
We got the best one. AEW still got the best one out of all those guys.
I don't disagree with you. So I mean, there's some Braun Strowman. I mean, there's tons of examples of people that and now I guess
Bray Wyatt.
Bray Wyatt. The final two I think that still have yet to show up on TV is Naomi and Sasha. But I do think they're both coming too. So.
Oh yeah, they'll be back for sure. I mean, I feel like they're hinting around about all that, here. So for sure. Now, I can't. I'm the first one to admit, you and I've talked about this before. I feel like you're a little bit more of a WWE guy than I am for sure. But I can give credit where credit is due. And the last couple of years since I got back into wrestling, I just cannot really enjoy WWE for what it was. I just couldn't. I just thought it made no sense. There was no storylines that made any sense, and aside from the Roman Reigns stuff, right? And everything else felt like it was like haphazard, like just copy and paste and like throw spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks and all that kind of stuff. But again, the last couple months, I feel like here we go. We're back to storytelling. We're back to things making sense. We're adding actual, movers and shakers, connecting with established stars. We're trying to mix it up a bit. I mean, for crying out loud, there's even been some interpromotional stuff with New Japan now all of a sudden, and it's just kind of surprising. And I don't know. I'm very surprised at that. And so, I mean, they I don't think the quote unquote forbidden door is going to be opened up that wide at all for WWE. But the fact that they're doing that with Carl Anderson right now in New Japan, that says a lot, because I think, again, underneath McMahon, that would never happen.
Never would have happened. I'm going to tell you, the more you're talking, the more oozy I'm feeling there, Jason Payne. I'm getting oozed up, man. Oozed up.
Goose. The goose is loose.
Hey, you mentioned Roman Reigns, and he's still the measuring stick, I think, in the whole business. I mean, they've kept the title on him longer than anybody probably in the last quarter century, maybe longer. He's going on over 2 years now, unbeaten. So kind of makes you wonder who that first person is going to be that dethrones him. I'm assuming it's going to be Cody Rhodes, depending on when he comes back. I keep hearing The Rock's name, but I mean, surely they're not going to put The Rock over Roman Reigns when he can't wrestle full time. And does that feud need the belt? I don't think it does. So to me, if that's what your plan is for Roman, then go ahead and let's get the belt off of him before WrestleMania season gets here. So if Cody makes his heroic return at, say, I don't know, like the Royal Rumble, then that might be a good time to do that. But I'm sorry, dude. My favorite person right now in any promotion.
Okay, I'm sitting down. I'm ready to hear this.
Are you sitting on your hands?
I will. Here they are, and they're gone.
The honorary Oos, Sami Zayn.
Sami Zayn, yes.
And this thing that they have with him on in the bloodline, with Jimmy and Jey Uso, and Jey hates his natural guts, and that whole thing going back and forth. Oh, it's just great. That's the best.
El Generico, dude, bring him back.
El Generico.
Yeah, I agree, dude. I agree. That's one that I don't know. I honestly didn't know much about him before I started watching WWE. I knew that he was in Ring of Honor, and he's had I'm sure other runs with other baby promotions on a lesser degree. I'm not sure, but when I first started watching WWE again, he was doing kind of like a managerial role, and he kind of I didn't really know what his whole thing was, and maybe he was injured, or again maybe it was one of those McMahon, like he thought that was a cool idea or whatever. But I just didn't get what he was doing, and I was not a fan. I didn't really know what his purpose was, right? So unless you kind of saw him from maybe the beginning or that whole storyline, maybe you don't really know what was going on there. So that was about 2.5, 3 years ago at this point, right? But I have to say, every time he's ever done anything in the ring, I'm like, this guy, like he gets it, I really like, I think he was kind of like the manager of like Nakamura, if I'm not mistaken, there for a while or something. He had something to do with Nakamura, right? So, is that who it is? Is that his name, Nakamura?
Yeah, Shinsuke Nakamura.
Yeah, Shinsuke Nakamura. All right, I want to make sure I got it right. So yeah, I mean, and so I really enjoyed, as what I saw as progression, even though he might have been great. I never saw it until the last year or so. But yeah, he plays that like slimy, smarmy, heel character who's like always, complaining and whining, and everyone's out to get him, and I really like that. And then he's a great wrestler on top of it.
Dude, he the entertainment aspect of his character now is what's taken over, because he's not
sure.
I mean, he's doing some in-ring stuff, but it's the stuff that he's doing during their he's like the good guy in the group. Like, he wants so much to be part of the bloodline, except that he's not Samoan, and he is in no shape, form, or fashion in any relation with any of those guys.
Right.
But he wants so much to be a part of them.
Sure.
And there's only one of the bloodline that's got a problem, and it's Jey. And when I tell you, man, that the stuff they're doing on Friday nights, it is some of the best, like, character work that I've seen. You've got Sami Zayn standing in the background, and his facial expressions are just making the whole scene.
Right.
Like, Roman Reigns is telling Jey that he's gonna make Sami Zayn a full-fledged Uso and gonna rename him Sammy Uso. And then you just do, his face is lighting up when Roman says, like he's seeing his presence under the tree on Christmas morning. His face is just glowing. That's the kind of stuff. I mean, you can't teach stuff like that. I listen to a podcast every week from Freddie Prinze Jr. You're familiar with Freddie Prinze Jr.?
Of course, dude. She's all that.
Yeah, she's all that. Well, he was a writer for the WWE for a while, and he does a podcast every week, and he said what Sami Zayn is doing right now, just acting wise, is, he said, I even when I was in all these movies, I couldn't do as well as he's doing right now. So that's pretty high praise right there. So anybody that's been keeping up with that knows Sammy's he's as over right now. To me, he's almost as over as Roman is.
All right. And I mean, everybody's been singing his praises, so it's just bound to happen that there's going to come to it's all going to come to a head.
Oh, absolutely.
And either he's going to be the reason why Roman loses the belt, some capacity, or there's going to be a falling out with the Usos with him. They're going to, Roman's going to pick, Sami Zayn over, Jey or whatever. There's going to be some kind. I mean, they're doing such a good job of laying the groundwork now. There's going to be, some sort of shenanigans or some sort of like huge plot point that's going to, come to a head.
Yeah, and when it happens, it's going to be good stuff. It's going to be good stuff.
For sure. Well, let me ask you this, talking about storytelling and things of that sort with Sami Zayn and the bloodline and all that. Now, you kind of alluded to Cody Rhodes when he comes back, or maybe Rock coming back, but they need to maybe start a program if they're going to actually go down that route, which I completely agree with. But outside of that stuff with Roman Reigns, what are some of the other storylines or wrestlers that you're kind of enjoying seeing now in the last, let's say, couple months? Now that there's because the first couple of weeks had to kind of get some traction because you're having to kind of work through what McMahon left, which was kind of like a steaming pile of nonsense. So since then, what are some of the things that you've been enjoying on the Raw or SmackDown or whatnot?
Well, I really like, and I hope they're not getting away from this, but at the Saudi Arabia show, they had Brock Lesnar going up against Bobby Lashley, and I think that is I think they need to give that some more attention.
Right.
And listen, that's a storyline that's ready-made. That's plug and play. You got two behemoths. You got two guys that have had mixed martial arts experience. They're just tough, bad hombres, and they want to see which one is the baddest. I think that's ready-made. Just give them some time to do that. I do think they did a pretty good job protecting Bobby. I don't know if you watched any or were able to see any of the Crown Jewel, but the way they ended that match is Bobby had Brock in the full Nelson, and Brock did I call it the old Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper, where he kicks.
Right.
So he's in the hold. He uses the turnbuckle to kick and propel himself back on top of Bobby, who doesn't break the hold. He still got him in the hold, but his shoulders are down for the 3 count, right? So Brock goes over, but he goes over in a way that still makes Bobby look really strong. So I hope they continue that. Your girl Bailey came back, and she's got a new faction. So I think they need to hurry up and put the belt on her or something, or that's going to get pretty stale pretty quick if they're not careful. I don't know. Riddle is he's starting to get on my nerves a little bit. I thought he was good for going good for a little while, but now he's just trying to make weed jokes and stuff on TV and
right. Yeah.
So I'd have to think about it some more. I like some of the stories that I'm seeing in AEW better. But to me, there is nothing in wrestling right now better than what's going on with the bloodline. Maybe a close second is what MJF's doing.
Right. So you mentioned this, so we'll pivot to AEW, because as the McMahon story, real life story was transpiring and spiraling out of control, AEW was like, here, hold my beer. We also can, take the fans for a ride with real life drama. And so, you and I don't need to probably go through what actually happened, because if you're a wrestling fan, you probably already know what happened. But real life happened. So the whole blurred line situation, which is what most wrestling fans enjoy, that you can't tell what's a work and what's not a work, and what's real, what's not, and all that kind of stuff. This situation happened live and in color, and you watched it at the wheels literally falling off in real time, right?
Right.
And so, I wake up the next day and I go to the AEW channel on YouTube, and they hadn't taken it down, and maybe it's still up, I don't know. But at the time, I went there because I was seeing it everywhere. It's like, CM Punk goes into business for himself and blah, 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 and all this stuff. So I go and watch it, and I'm like, wow. So with that being said, like I said, we don't need to rehash what you as a wrestling fan and who is, CM Punk's been around forever, Ring of Honor, then he's going with WWE for like, I don't know, 12 years or something crazy. Then he like was left for 7 years. He shows back up at AEW. And it's like probably this past year, we're talking about storylines. I think the CM Punk storyline with MJF and essentially everybody with CM Punk pretty much rubbed elbows with has been some of the best storytelling in wrestling in, I don't know, forever. So with that being said, and watching it go from the highs of the high to the lows of the low, where do you come down on some of what has happened leading up to it, the fallout, and just like in general, your thoughts about that situation?
Well, I don't know who was right and who was wrong in the situation,
Sure.
But it seems like Tony Khan has made his decision on what side he's going to be on.
Sure. Yep.
It looks like the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega are going to be coming back. They're doing some of these kind of anti-elite kind of pop-up vignettes during the show and stuff. I got to think that's about. I've been seeing talks. I know nothing official has come out about AEW buying out the rest of the CM Punk contract. And I know how it's being spun. It's being spun as CM Punk is a cancer in the locker room, a me guy. I don't know that anybody will know who was right and who was wrong in the actual melee that happened backstage, but he's gone. He ain't coming back, at least not to AEW. It doesn't appear. So they've decided to move on with the guys that got him to the dance, so to speak. So
Right.
I've heard tell that CM Punk, there's some interest from WWE in bringing him back in. I don't know. He's obviously he's not afraid of Tony Khan because he did all of this with Tony sitting right beside him in that press conference, said all these things that led to this event happening backstage. And to me, that just shows, again, some growing pains for Tony Khan. So, he just kind of sat there and let all that happen instead of kind of stepping in, putting his hand over the mic or whatever and saying, hey, we'll talk about this later. Let's move on, that kind of thing. He just didn't take any leadership over that situation while it was happening. So CM Punk just let it fly.
Right. So what did you think about as far as like the CM Punk storyline with MJF and leading up to all that with his wrestling matches with Moxley and I just felt like, again, aside from maybe the Roman Reigns stuff, and even though I'm not a WWE like a fan and like necessarily in a big time, but I can respect like again that storyline because it's been going on for the better part of 2 years now. But with CM Punk and pretty much the whole MJF thing again with Moxley, I just was like, wow. There was so much great stuff going on there for me again.
Well, and that's who gets lost in every bit of this CM Punk drama, Jason, is MJF. He made his big return on that show, and nobody's talking about MJF the next day. Nobody's talking about his return. It's all about the CM Punk thing. I'll be honest with you. I think that this could have been a real game changer for AEW had they turned it into a storyline.
Sure, yeah.
It would have been it could have been on par with like the Montreal Screwjob.
Yes.
Because everybody was talking about it. It was on every wrestling news site, whatever you want to talk about. You couldn't, it was everywhere,
Right.
And nobody was talking about anything that's happened in wrestling as far as you mentioned the blurred lines of what's real, what's not real.
Right.
Nobody was talking about anything else except that situation. So they could have cashed in. I'm sure there was probably some legal reasons why they didn't. But, man, what an opportunity they missed. And we'll never – obviously, it can't happen now. But, man, that could have been So I got to imagine that Tony Khan was kind of strutting with his tail feathers out, because he saw what was going on at WWE, and they were kind of on a slippery slope going downhill, all the McMahon stuff happening. But man, things have really kind of done a 180. And
I completely agree. And
yeah.
I think that goes back to what we were getting right. I don't mean to cut you off, but I think that also is a good point, because up until what happened with Triple H and WWE and McMahon, I mean, Tony Khan and AEW was the place to go. Like, everyone wanted to go there. Like, literally, everyone wanted to go there, aside from maybe a few, random wrestlers who thought they'd try their fortunes elsewhere, or people who just, Tony Khan didn't want. Like, everyone ended up at AEW because it was the closest next option outside of WWE to get, exposure and to get serious, to be like a serious contender on a wrestling, program, right? But as soon as that situation, fell apart with McMahon and WWE and Triple H, whoa, like you said, how the tables turned around, and now everyone's scrambling to get back, and Triple H is welcoming back people with open arms. Right. So it really is going to, and I will say also, initially, I was worried about AEW like sliding into like Impact territory, like here we go. But I will say, and I'm assuming you've seen pretty much kept up with a lot of the wrestling since AEW, since that whole thing. I feel like they've been doing a heck of a job with all that going on. Like, Tony Khan came out and addressed it and said, this is what we're doing. And ever since then, I felt like AEW Dynamite and even Rampage has had good storytelling, good matches, lots of different changes in like scenery with people who's showing up there, and like you almost don't even miss like CM Punk. Like, I don't even think about it anymore. Like, I was worried that it was gonna like just be a tailspin, but quite frankly, I feel like they've been producing some of the best wrestling in the last 2 months since that all happened that they did in the last 4 or 5 months leading up to it, quite frankly.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. I think that what we're seeing is people coming together to try to keep the ship moving in the right direction. I think Tony's learned a lot from all this.
Yeah.
But it also, it doesn't hurt that you've got probably the second hottest wrestler on the planet, and you're strapping the rocket ship to him right now. And that's
have you been keeping up with, like, something's going to go down and All Out with between MJF and Sir William Regal? Like, you just know something's going on. Like, they keep referencing every week between the two. They have their like knockdown drag out conversations, like in the ring. There's all these little quips going on, little barbs going. You just know. I think what's going to happen to protect Moxley, but to put MJF over, is that Regal will interfere in the match, and MJF's going to win, and he's going to turn his back on the Blackpool Combat Club or whatever, because Danielson's kind of already out of that now. Wheeler Yuta thing kind of fell apart a bit with the whole thing. The only two people really involved in that right now is Wheeler Yuta and Claudio, right? So I feel like at this point, they had their little run, they had their little scrimmages, which is fine. There was some good stuff there, but I kind of felt like, all right, it's kind of hit a wall. But this is a perfect way to protect Moxley, but get, like you said, that jetpack, strap it to MJF, and let him go into the stratosphere. What's your thoughts about that? I don't know if you've kept up with it, but where are you at on that?
Oh yeah, man, I've kept up with it. I think the last time you and I talked, we were curious as to why they hadn't put him on TV. He went through that whole period where he cut that scathing promo on the boss and called him Mark and told him he wanted out of the company, and then you didn't see him for months. And
show the autograph, the meet and greet with the fans and all that.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden he pops back up, and he pops back up in more of a babyface type position. And I think you and I both agree. Yeah, he could be a very good babyface, but he is, and in his core, a heel. And I think that's
Right.
the direction they're going to go. I absolutely agree with you. I think there's going to be some business done between he and William Regal. There was too much talk about being a proper villain between the two of them and stuff. And
Right.
yeah, I think the brass knucks are going to get involved, and you're going to see. And I think Regal with MJF is just going to make him even better. But
I agree.
He's a heel, man. He is not at least not right now. He's not a baby face. He needs to have that belt as a heel, and then that'll only make him one day. That'll make his baby face run even better. But yeah, he's got to be a bad guy right now.
Because honestly, aside from Kenny Omega, who's more like a goofy heel, they haven't had like a true villainous heel champion. So to have somebody like MJF who's like basically telling, people like Flying Brian Pillman Jr. or whatever, that he was a mistake and his dad should have pulled out and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of stuff.
Every time I think about it, man, I cringe.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of heel level, I mean, we haven't, AEW has not had that kind of heel where he can get on the mic and like really just like slice and dice the crowd, the fans, the marks, the wrestlers, the company. So, I mean, because Kenny Omega was like the goofy heel, kind of like, he's on this goofy and acting silly. And he wasn't like a truly villainous heel, like you were saying. And I feel like this is a good opportunity that, you can really see that. And I mean, they need to keep that on him for a good long while too, because like you said, I mean, he is primetime television right now for AEW. Like, you don't want this to be like a flash in the pan, get to the next pay-per-view and he loses it. Like, that can't happen.
No. I agree with you. And I just ask him, he'll tell you. He is the biggest minute-by-minute draw in the company according to the ratings. When he's on TV, people tune in, and I believe that. I believe he probably is the biggest draw in the company. And yes, I agree. They need to keep that belt on him. They need to find somebody they need to find some kind of underdog, whether it's like Bryan Danielson again, like they did in WWE with him. I don't know who that person, I'm just trying to go through all these names in my head, and I don't know who that person is, but he is, he's just that much better than everybody else. So it's got to be somebody that the fans aren't going to, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Do you remember when Stone Cold Steve Austin was just
never heard of him?
Oh, yeah. Who's that guy?
Yeah.
But he was doing the same kind of things as far as being kind of that anti-hero that MJF was doing in his promos, but the fans just kept getting with him, kind of like they're doing with MJF, to the point that they had to make him a babyface, right?
Right,
but
yeah.
You got to be careful who you put across the ring from him. At least the WWE had Bret Hart, or they had The Rock to go opposite Stone Cold. We got to be careful in AEW who's going to be that person across the ring from MJF, because he will bury. You put the wrong person over there in a feud, and he can bury somebody like that with just his mic skills.
Right.
And so it's got to be somebody that's got the ability to either match him on the mic, which I don't know that they have anybody that can do that, or can beat his behind in the ring. And that's why I think maybe a Bryan Danielson might be a good candidate for that.
I agree. Now, this is me as kind of a fan or fantasy booking or whatever. And I know it probably won't happen because I don't know if they see him in this role. But he's one of those guys that's very believable. He has some decent. Now, he's a great promo when it's like a pre-recorded, intros and stuff. Those vignettes. That's the word I was looking for. But as far as like toe-to-toe in the ring with somebody like MJF, he probably would get obliterated. But he's a believable. He could go either way. He could be a villain, but I think he could also be a heel because he also just has so much people liking him, and he's disappeared from TV. So it would not be something that you'd want to do immediately because you want to build it up. But Miro, somebody like Miro would be like a great guy because he's 100% believable to take. And also it kind of goes into the whole WWE thing that, that would like MJF's been running his mouth about and talks about how all these guys just keep coming over here trying to get some of the piece of the pie. And Miro could like lean into that. And I think that would be a fun one to do. Even if it was the one that he would lose eventually, like MJF would beat him, that to me would be like something that, that would be a fun one to watch. Because again, to me, that's a monster, in there. And and like, quite frankly, I think that, AEW doesn't have many guys like him, that are believable monsters that can go in there and like really tear people down. So, to me, it would be interesting. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but, I don't want somebody just, like you said, there's hard to find people, like, aside from Bryan Danielson, that can get in there and, like, be believable right now as like, equal footing. So, I don't want, you don't want to feed him any of the top guys just to beat and just throw to the wolves. So, you have to be, you have to be very, methodical in your approach. So I don't know. I just feel like that's somebody that you haven't seen coming in a while could be used in a very positive way that way. What's your thoughts a little bit there? Who aside from maybe Danielson, what else are your thoughts?
I'll be honest. I don't. There's some talent that I don't know that Tony Khan knows what to do with them. We saw what happened with Wardlow. Wardlow's kind of fallen off. I mean, I guess is he still the TNT champion? I don't even know if he's still the TNT champion or not. But you got Mir.
Yes, he is.
He just, they were making him out to be a monster, and now I don't even know what he's doing. I don't know. I don't know if I trust. I don't know if I trust Tony Khan with somebody like Miro. I don't know if Tony Khan knows what to do with somebody like Miro. I don't know if Tony Khan would make Miro a believable threat because he's a WWE guy. I don't know. I don't know.
That's true.
I tell you who I'd like to tell you, if it's not Bryan Danielson, and I know this isn't going to happen either because he's doing the whole ROH thing. But man, put MJF across the ring from somebody that knows how to get him over as a heel, right?
Okay, right.
Somebody that's got. I'll just say it. Figure out a way to make Chris Jericho a good guy, and put him back in the mix somehow or another. I don't know. I hate to say it, but it's these guys it's these old guys, these vets. That's really what he needs. Because as good as he is on the mic, I think the total package is the mic and the ring, and putting a veteran in there is going to help get him over once the bell rings.
I see what you're saying, but I guess for me personally, and I like Jericho, don't get me wrong, he's the Ocho, right? So that's his thing. But kind of like with Cody Rhodes in some respects, it's like there's a couple of guys, Jericho. I feel like they're always front and center of every storyline in some capacity. And I just want and again, this is like a Tony Khan problem, is that he has such a deep roster that I want to see other people get their time in the sun.
I don't disagree with you.
But like you said, somebody like Jericho is the only guy left that I think they have there that is maybe not equal ring ability anymore, but is believable. But as far as a mic, you give him a mic and he can, he won't be able. He probably can't be on the same level as MJF, but it's believable. He has enough. Entertainment, sports entertainment, that he can pull off those believable, back and forth where it's not so like this is painful to watch, as MJF just obliterates people on the mic. So
Right.
And I agree with you. Now, let me ask you this, and kind of again a little bit of AEW pivot or whatever. Um, uh, where, but we talked a little bit about, MJF, of course, a lot of it. But what are your opinions for? We'll do AEW. We can go back to maybe WWE or elsewhere. But where are a couple of wrestlers that you are looking to see? You're excited to see there, but it's not really doing much. And you're kind of, like I said, I want to see Miro in there more. I want to. That's somebody I've always really enjoyed his work. I liked him as Rusev in WWE. But I mean, what are some of the guys or gals that are you're wanting to see more time on TV?
Yeah, I mean, Miro comes to mind instantly just because that guy's so good. He's believable. He's a monster. But it's like I said, I don't know that. I don't necessarily know that Tony knows how to book somebody like him. That's why, to me, I would love to see him go back. Yep. I'd love to see him go back to WWE. I really would, man. I just can't get out of my head. Think about this now, JP. If I can get on that level with you. Did you see how I just used your initial in a nickname? That's I did that.
I see it, dude.
On the fly, dude, without any thought.
I'm impressed.
I have 2 notes, man. Think about this though. It was just a few years ago that he freaking came out of WrestleMania in a tank, going up against one of the biggest names of all time in John Cena. Think about that. And he ain't even on TV in the secondary. And I'm not trying to bash AEW when I say this, but it's reality. They're the secondary brand as far as the United States goes. And he's not even on their TV program. So, I mean, he's the number one guy that comes to mind as far as that goes. In AEW now. WWE. Right. Golly, they got so much. They got so many people. I don't know, man. I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with Sami Zayn. I know he's on TV. A lot, but my anticipation is building with this, how they're going to split this thing up and seeing what they do and how big of a name he can become. And I heard something kind of bizarre. I listened to Conan's podcast. I'm a big podcast guy, in case you hadn't figured that out. But I'm picking up what you're laying down. Oh yeah, so Conan has this guy that comes on that supposedly has some inside dirt inside the company, and says that The Rock didn't necessarily want to go one-on-one with Roman at WrestleMania, but that they might split the bloodline and have Sami Zayn and Jimmy go up against Roman and Jay at WrestleMania, and somehow do something like that. So it's just different scenarios are interesting about what they're going to do with that situation. I mean, obviously Shinsuke Nakamura, I think he's still a guy that I don't think has reached his potential in the U.S. Still, right. They're gonna have to take a chance on him. I know I can only imagine. It's not the charisma. The guy's got tons of charisma, but it's got to be the speaking, the language, and stuff that's kind of the barrier there. But they got to figure something else out, because to me, he's a guy that they could still do so much with. So,
right,
yeah. So that's a name that I wouldn't mind seeing them do more with on TV. Braun Strowman is going to be who he is. He's going to be a big guy. You know, I think his time has passed as far as being a top guy.
Right.
And then I'm going to tell you, the other thing that intrigues me about WWE is what they're doing with Bray Wyatt.
Yeah.
You know, and who this Uncle Howdy is, and supposedly there's going to be 6 different characters. Does that mean that it's going to be 6 different people? Or is that Bray Wyatt that's going to be split into 6 different personalities? I mean, it's pretty interesting to think about.
Yeah, I mean, let me ask you this, because I have a couple of questions that are like bouncing around in my brain here. But let me ask you this one. I know it's dangerous. Now, what's your thoughts about kind of spooky, wrestling, gimmicks, right? Like the Undertakers of the world, right? The spooky, like, supernatural, I guess, is the best way to explain. I wasn't really big on the whole like Firefly Funhouse stuff when I was watching. I didn't really quite get it. Yeah. I did like the Wyatt family stuff back when it was, Brody Lee and Redbeard or whatever, those guys. I like that stuff. I absolutely love the stuff that Malachi Black's doing with the House of Black. I'm loving that stuff. That to me is like a horror movie, like European, like freaky, like stuff like he's doing, which I dig. So with that being said, I do, and I like the Sting stuff. I like the Undertaker stuff. It's kind of like, straddles the line of supernatural. So with that being said, where do you fall in that? Because I feel like both companies sometimes struggle with that type of supernatural slants on wrestling. If it's done correctly, it can be great. Right. But if it's not done correctly, it gets really gimmicky and goofy.
I agree, which is, if you think about it, it just makes the Undertaker's run that much more impressive that he was able to do that for so long. But he changed it up,
Right, he did.
I'll answer that question with this. When they started promoting Bray Wyatt's return without using his name,
right,
they were just throwing up these weird little vignettes in the middle of a show at awkward times, and a QR code would pop up, and you would have to pause your TV so you could scan the QR code. I was scanning the QR code. I was the guy that was rewinding it, scanning the QR code, and doing, going to wherever the QR code took, because I was that interested. So, yeah, I mean, I'm in it right now. I'm here for it at the moment. Let's just see what happens and where they go with it. There's been some iterations that, I didn't care for. The Fiend, I don't know. I could have done without that. I did like the Wyatt family because that was more like a cult type thing. That was more believable. Here it is right here. Here it is. You have to make it. People are willing to suspend their disbelief, but only to a point. When it gets too outrageous, people are not gonna be interested. If it gets too phony. You have to have a lot of different things in a show to maintain your audience. You got to have good wrestling. You got to have some good promos, and you got to have some of this kind of supernatural kind of, stuff too. But you just got to do it right.
Yeah. And I agree. I think, if it's done correctly, which I feel like I was kind of surprised, and again, I don't know how much you follow this, but the House of Black stuff, I thought it was going over really well. They had some really good matches with they had like some triple tag matches. They had some individuals. They had some tag team stuff. And they did stuff with Darby Allin and even Miro and Sting. They did stuff with with Cody Rhodes. They've done some just they did stuff with the Varsity Blondes. I mean, just all kinds of little things where there's kind of they worked in some other angles, and then I really liked that. Again, it was like right on the edge for me of like you said, reality based, but also with like the supernatural tinge, but it wasn't too over the top, right? So to me, it was working. But when I heard Malachi Black was like, is he Malachi Black and yeah, he's Malachi Black in AEW. He's Aleister Black in WWE.
Right.
So when Malachi Black was, saying that you got the vibe that he wanted out, like he wanted to go back over to the King of Kings. And I was like, are you serious? I felt like they were giving him like a free reign to do whatever he was wanting over there. I mean, it felt like it was truly a Malachi Black approach, and and everything. So I was really surprised by that. I'm glad to hear that he's staying, and they're bringing them back. They're doing their vignettes, and I think like last week they did one with like fire, earth, water. So there's like a thing there, and so you see they're gonna be doing something else, like, because I mean I'm loving Brody King. I mean he's a monster. Talk about monsters. I want to see him and like Miro or him and Lance Archer or somebody go at it for like a good segment. Again like Hobbs, Powerhouse Hobbs. These guys are like this big old huge men just going at each other. I mean those we don't see enough of that. I think in AEW, which we should see more of. Where WWE is a lot more big about having some of their big guys fight more frequently, which I enjoy. So yeah, I agree with you. But do you have a follow up there?
If they add a couple more guys, you mentioned the earth, the fire, and the water. If they just add a couple more characters, they could bring back Captain Planet.
Right. They'd have one like Hearts. I think Hearts one or something. Wind. Yes. Yes. Oh man. So this is the other question I had rolling around in this brain of mine that's completely different than what we've been discussing. Nick Aldis, the 10 pounds of gold of NWA, he's done. He is officially done as of, I think, January 1. I think he may have a few more obligations with William Patrick Corgan in the NWA. Where do you see this guy at? Where do you see him? Because he's not going to be the NWA. And for the last 5 years, he said that, he wanted to stay with NWA and he wanted to be there for the rebuild. And, Tony Khan tried to get him to come to AEW and he declined. So what do you think about him? Because I feel like he's probably the face of NWA over the last handful of years, but he's pretty much been written off TV if you follow their programs at all. And I don't know if many wrestling fans watch NWA. It's kind of like a peripheral wrestling promotion, unfortunately, nowadays. But he's still, I feel like, a genuine talent that's out there. So with that being said, what's your thoughts, if any, on him?
Well, I don't follow NWA regularly. However, when they first started their YouTube show, or at least broadcasting their show on YouTube, I really kind of dug it for a little while because it brought back that old studio wrestling kind of vibe, the way they had it back in 70s and 80s with Jim Crockett Promotions and stuff. So I dug that. Nick Aldis is a super, super talented guy, right? But the last time he was on TV to where people really knew who he was when he was in TNA as Magnus, right?
Yeah, that's true. Which has been about 10 years ago, 8 years ago. I mean, it's been a while.
Easily. So somebody asked, do I think that if he was like a surprise entrant in the Royal Rumble, would he get a big pop? I don't think so. I don't know how many folks know who he is. And so I think his best bet is to go to AEW. I think that would be his place where he can find success faster. Because really, if he goes to WWE, they're going to have to start from the ground floor with him again and build him back up. Not that he couldn't do it, because like I said, he's super talented guy. He'd be an interesting guy maybe to go opposite an MJF.
That's true. That is a good point. That because he would be able to get in there, and he's British, right? There might be a connection there with Lord William Regal or whatnot. You never know what that story might look like. But regardless of that, he's a good talker. Actually, he can get in there and do. Now he's nowhere near MJF level. That's not. But I mean, he would be a feasible and very able-bodied guy, not only in the ring but on the mic. And he could take a loss, but if it's a good program, it would be a good way to build him up. The one problem I have with AEW, and you can maybe speak to this more if you want, is they'll introduce like a quasi heavy hitter, like new to AEW, right? And they get their first, they put them right into the top contender match for a belt, and then they're just going to job out to somebody. They just show up and they just get bounced immediately. So if you do this with Nick Aldis, right, let him have a month and a half of a, program. So when he does get beat inevitably, which is fine, it's like he can build off of that, and then he can work, another program. My biggest problem is AEW introduces so many new people, and then they just pretty much get buried immediately once they get, introduced. Like Ruby Soho is a great example of that.
Yeah, so the way you combat that is you have them introduced, and then they win.
Did I lose you?
I don't know. Am I there? You got me back?
Right.
Okay. No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, you introduce them and you have them win. You don't have them job out to somebody. You have them go over. So whether that's a Chris Jericho with the ROH title, or you could do it if you kept the AEW belt on Moxley after Full Gear, which I don't think they're going to do. You could do it with John Moxley, and you could have a Nick Aldis debut and take the belt off of Moxley. You don't have him job out. You have him make an instant splash, because what does that tell your audience? Wow, who is this guy? If I don't know him, he must be a big deal, because he shows up and wins the belt. So that's how you combat that, and I think you could do that with a guy like Nick Aldis, because he's kind of the total package. He can talk. He's got a presence that he's really, really good. He just carries himself that way, and he's a good promo. So I mean, you could do that with a guy like him. I don't think that WWE is the place for Nick Aldis to go.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, let's be honest, Nick Aldis, his suit game is on the level of MJF's suit game.
Oh man!
So they both be rocking the suits. Now he doesn't need to wear the right. Yeah, he can't wear a Burberry scarf because MJ will lose his mind. But right. So, but yeah, okay. So I feel like Nick Aldis, that's an interesting one there. Now let me ask you this: I know you do. Do you keep up a little bit with Impact?
I don't.
Okay. So let me ask you this. I mean, even though you don't keep up with Impact, I mean, you're going to know who these people are. So Mickie James, she's right now in Impact. She's been there for the last year and change, I believe. Last time we saw her, after her garbage bag was delivered to her house a year and a half ago from WWE, she shows up again, WWE working with Impact to a degree, having her come in the Royal Rumble, and basically, she just kind of shows up and gets thrown out, essentially. I mean, she has a little bit of a time in the sun, but, it wasn't much more than that, right?
Right.
But I can see her showing back up now at WWE. Her and Stephanie McMahon, they were, I feel like there's something there. She could come back possibly. She might be a good person to have at WWE. I mean, I feel like she's more of a WWE person than her husband, quite frankly, obviously, for obvious reasons. I mean, do you see somebody like Mickie James now that McMahon's gone could probably go back and have another final run there? Because she's been talking, if you don't know, she's been talking about her final run, so to speak, in Impact for the last couple months. Like, if she gets beat, she's done with wrestling. Do you think that, or do you kind of feel like it's time to move on past that? Uh-oh. Oh, here we go. You there?
All right. Sorry, dude.
No, it's okay. It's all right, dude. It is what it is.
Yeah. This time of night, man, the internet just does weird stuff at my house. So, no, I'd love to see Mickie James do something with WWE again. And you don't really have that veteran presence among the women. You got a lot of new folks.
That's true.
That haven't been in the business for a while. I see if they'll take the belt off Bayley or take it off of Bianca and give it to Bayley, man, what a great feud that would be between Mickie James and Bayley. So I think that definitely could work. You also got to remember who else is out there that's been gone for a while. What are they going to do with Charlotte Flair when she comes back? Because, I mean, she's on a different level from everybody else. So I don't know. She's been gone for several months, really since WrestleMania.
If we could swap out Andrade with Charlotte Flair at AEW, that'd be great. We could send Andrade back to WWE. I think he'll do better over there. And then Charlotte Flair, because there's a bunch of, I think now, honestly, there's a women level now that Charlotte Flair would probably do amazing things over there. I don't know what your thoughts are, but where are you at on something like that with the women's division with AEW?
Well, I think Saraya does a lot for them. And so I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, obviously you can't have a Charlotte Flair debut in your company and it not be a huge deal. But I think I think they're on a pretty good path with Saraya and Britt Baker. So I mean, I would put Charlotte Flair in that same category with Saraya as far as what I would have her do. And if you've already got Saraya there doing it, I don't know how much more value gets added with somebody like Charlotte. I don't know. It's interesting to think.
I guess I want to see her and Jade Cargill go at it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that would be tremendous. But Charlotte,
that to me is the first women's true pay-per-view final match.
Main event.
Like main event, everybody will stop what they're doing and watch that match. Because I feel like that is, Jade Cargill a year ago, no way. She would not. I mean, she looks like $1 million, but her in-ring stuff wasn't there. But I think now it's a different situation. She has literally 50 matches under her belt. She's pretty much on TV every single day or every single week. I mean, she's not anywhere near the level of Charlotte Flair as far as the history there together. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that would be a great match. The only thing I would be afraid of is, would Charlotte Flair, being as good as she is in the ring, would she expose Jade Cargill's kind of lack of experience? And
that's true.
Not on purpose, but as a result.
Sure.
Kind of bury Jade. Do you remember when William Regal and Bill Goldberg had a match in WCW? And that's exactly what happened. William Regal exposed Bill Goldberg's lack of wrestling ability. And so that
right.
That might not do Jade any favors, but fantasy booking wise, yeah, that'd be a heck of a draw right there. So,
for what, in your opinion, then, not your opinion, but what you do is you're keeping up with WWE, you're keeping up with AEW. I mean, that's what I'm taking from our conversation. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah. I'm watching every. I'm watching every.
So, is there anybody? So, who do you think should leave AEW and go to WWE, and who do you think from WWE should go to AEW? Who do you think would be more successful with opposite companies?
To me, WWE for the most part is a big man, or is turning back into a big man company. So right now, if I was the general manager and I was working out a trade, I would send Johnny Gargano and Ricochet to AEW in exchange for Miro and Wardlow.
Yeah. I feel like that. I feel like you're right. The thing is with Wardlow, he was so hot there about 4 months ago and back, right? And then I just don't feel like they capitalized on him ever since he got the what the TNT or TBS title or whatever TNT title. I feel like they dropped the ball. Now they put him with Samoa Joe. Now that is, it'll be interesting now that they had a falling out. Will Hobbs is in that mix now as well. That's 3 big dudes slapping some man meat around. So that has a lot of potential that we could see a lot of good things come from that, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe they are. Go ahead.
No, I was agreeing with you 100%. That's a good example. But let's be real. What ended Wardlow's hotness? I guess what ended it. It was when it was the same.
MJF, man.
MJF left. Had they kept that going a little bit, then they could have kept those embers, hot and moving. But he just disappeared. The guy that he'd been feuding with and finally beat for the title disappeared. And so it just kind of put everything. And that's, to me, just like MJF was a victim of this backstage stuff between Punk and the Elite, Wardlow was a victim too of MJF skedaddling. So, I mean, I'm interested to see what happens with these three big dudes now kind of facing off with each other.
Now, I will tell you real quick, my idea of the best trade would be Rey Mysterio over to AEW, which probably will never happen because he's so beloved there, even if he's kind of been like, a storyline with his son that doesn't feel like it's going anywhere for me, right? Quite frankly. But I feel like Rey Mysterio for all ego, Ethan Page. I feel like Ethan Page would be huge in WWE. He has that kind of like, full of himself, cock of the walk, walking around like he knows he's hot stuff, which plays better with a WWE crowd, I think. That would be, I mean, he could play face, he could play heel really well on either one, but I feel like he would be mega hot with AEW, with WWE crowd, and I feel like for Rey Mysterio, there's way more high flyers and lucha libre and a lot more like a respect for what Mysterio's has been doing. But pretty much he's the only one left over there doing that at WWE, that he could come over there and be like a wrestler manager type guy or like behind the scenes. He could pop up. What are your thoughts about that kind of trade? Or you're not feeling that?
No, I'm feeling it, and I agree with you because he is good on the stick. I tell you what, I like that trade so much. I'm going to throw in somebody from WWE along with that, a 2-for-1, just because I can't stand this guy.
Okay.
He's a freaking vacuum of charisma. Please do us a favor and take Baron Corbin with you. All right, take Baron Corbin over to AEW too. When you
we'll take Happy Corbin. We don't want to take Baron Corbin.
JP. When you have to have JBL come out as your voice, you're dead in the water, buddy. Dead on arrival. He is god awful. Take him for free. Don't even have to give us anything in return.
I mean, he's like, to me, he's like a Braun Strowman, like big guy, but not much more going on.
He was doing his best work when he was broke and looking for handouts. That was the best work he's done. Just keep him doing that. As soon as you had him win the lottery,
right? That's true. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So I don't want if you gotta get going, I understand. I'm fine. We keep going for a bit. But this was an interesting question that Henry asked like 20, 40 minutes ago. What wrestler would you guys want to be? So I'll let you go first. If you had to be one wrestler, who would you pick?
Good grief. I've never thought about that. I think I would have to just pick somebody that was just cool. Like I think I'd be Scott Hall. Razor Ramon.
Scott Hall, Big Papa Pump.
Yeah, just somebody that's cool.
Maybe I missed it because it cut out on me. Because his math is so good, right?
No. I didn't say Big Papa Pump, and his math
What's
is
that?
atrocious. No, Razor Ramon, Scott
Who did
Hall.
you say? I thought you said. Oh, you said Scott Hall. I'm sorry, you said
Yeah.
Scott Hall. Yes, Razor Ramon. I got you.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so my pick. Yeah, I agree. Scott Hall. That'd be a good one. Yeah, Yeah, I loved Razor Ramon, dude. As a kid, dude, Razor Ramon was just. Oh my gosh, I loved it. But
Yeah.
My pick would be Rowdy Piper. I feel like he JF is now. Absolutely great on the microphone. Great. I don't know. Would you say Piper was a great wrestler? I'm not for sure. Would you say that?
I mean, I would say it if you never got a chance to watch his dog collar match with Greg Valentine. That was, I mean, yeah, he was a pretty good wrestler.
Yeah, that's a great.
But he's a guy like Hulk Hogan whose character overshadowed his work in the ring.
Yeah, I agree. That's true. But I just always think that he was kind of heel. He could be face. He was great on the microphone. He was above average in the ring for sure. You know, like you said, he wasn't. You know, he could do both. I mean, he could do commentary. It was just a little bit of everything. You know, I just thought he was just great. I just liked his approach. Just he was very. What's the word I'm looking for? He was willing to take risks in every aspect of wrestling, and it's hard to find guys back then, even today, to do that.
Right. Yeah, totally agree.
So, anyways, but man, I'll go ahead and wrap it up here. It's a good one. We what was that?
Yeah, my internet's screwing up bad, dude. It's I'm sorry. It's been real sketch.
That's okay. Nope. We did it for we did this for an hour and 15 minutes almost. It's been plenty. But I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this. We need to do this more regularly. I know we say this, but we need to try to do this once a month just to get in and talk about the previous months, especially nowadays with so much going on. A month, would be more realistic. So, but anyways, with that being said, what did you say?
I said you can miss a lot even in a month.
I'll scratch the surface what we've been doing for the last hour and change. You know, there's a lot more to get into than we could get into today. But I appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to do that. We'll look forward to doing it again. I'll definitely reach out to you, and we'll maybe try to set this up maybe sometime in December. We'll do one more before the end of the year. Maybe we'll do a year in review. So
that sounds good, man. I enjoyed it as always, my brother. Hey,
all right, brother.
Hey,
I appreciate your time.
Before we sign off, let me ask you something.
Yes, sir.
Did I see Jason Payne on one John Mangini's channel talking about baseball?
Yeah, that was John. That was John's attempt to, I think, get me back into the ball card community and back into the interwebs when it comes to that. But unfortunately, it's probably not going to happen. I just like what was the 1994
strike.
Was it the what? What was it?
Was the baseball strike in '94?
The 1994, yeah, strike, right? The '94 strike. You know, and how that ruined the baseball for so many people. That they just were done with baseball after that. That's kind of how I am now with everything else. I can't enjoy it. I want to enjoy it, but I just can't.
Yeah. Well, I had
John's a good guy. All right, I know. But if you finish the very end, if you haven't watched, you go back and watch the very end. I tell everybody what I really think about it at the end. If you don't like me, you can do something if you want to go do that. So yeah, I left with my own personal signature heading out the gate. John, it was the first time John Mangini was speechless. He was like, oh, okay. So, but yeah, man. Yeah,
with your finishing moves.
Don't know if it's ever gonna happen. Maybe. I did it with the old. I don't even know, but yeah, it was fun. I appreciate John, but yeah, that's more like a one-off scenario. So
got it. All right, man. Well, it was good talking to you as always.
Brother. Well, I appreciate it, and all right, yeah, it's been fun. You take care of yourself, sir. You have a good one.
All right, buddy. See you.
Peace. See you now.